Good evening, and thank you for joining in. Thank you for taking time to be watching this particular cast. My name is Geoffrey Kimonge, Mbogo. I'm the author of the book Kenya, the Unfinished Business. Kenya, Unfinished Business. Um, it is a 60-year journey from Kenya since we got independence up to today. We are going to examine and look at things rather more objectively and ask ourselves the hard questions. Since we are where we are and we know where we are, really, have we realized the Kenyan dream at independence? Those who were there, who fought for independence, today can we say that the dream and whatever the ambitions has been realized? It's going to be a very interesting discussion. I'm going to take you through step by step from the time of pre-independence, a little bit pre-independence. We'll look at the Lancaster House negotiation, and then we'll come all the way to the present day Kenya, where we are. And then again, we are going to look at the other peer nations. We are going to look at the some of the Asian tigers, the Asian economy. We are looking at Singapore, Taiwan, and the other Asian, Malaysia countries, which started more or less on the same footing. Probably were more advantaged because some of them did not have natural resources the way we have here in Kenya. But then again, today. Their GDP is more than 25 times our current GDP here in Kenya. So, where did we go wrong? What happened? Let us explore the 60-year journey. First, najivunia kuwa Mkenya. As you can see, I'm dressed in the Kenyan flag. It is a symbol, a sign to show that I'm going to be non-partisan. I'm not going to be biased towards any particular political inclination. I'm going to look at Kenya objectively in terms of how we started, how it started, and how it went. I'm going to take you through the step by step in this very exciting journey. More than six decades after independence, Kenya stands at the crossroads. The colonial flag was lowered, but many of the systems that sustained exploitation, inequality, and dependency remain deeply embedded in the nation's institution, economy, politics, and collective consciousness. Now, this is where we're going to start this conversation. This book traces Kenya's journey from pre-colonial society through colonial conquest, the fight for independence, and the post-independence era, asking difficult but necessary questions. Why has political freedom not translated into broad-based prosperity? That's the first question. Why has political freedom translated into broad-based prosperity? We'll interrogate that in a bit. And then the other question that would be very interesting to look at is why do elections repeatedly divide rather than unite the nation? Repeatedly. This is not something which was created the other day. This is something which is systemic. It is structural issue which we have to confront. And unless we understand where the problem is, unless for us to deal with the current problems we are facing as a nation, for us to move from scapegoating, looking for scapegoats, looking for people to blame, and understanding that it is the structures which were laid and the structures and the foundation which was not properly set is what is causing us to be where we are. But all is not lost. At the end of the book, I have written in chapter 16 of the book, it clearly tells you and gives you hope. It tells you where we're going, how we should get there, and the way we should structure ourselves in order to achieve. When we look at Singapore and when we look at Malaysia and when we look at these other Asian countries, how they got to be where they are and how we got to be where we are, it all boils down to one thing. We are looking at the software, right? We should interrogate the software, the systems. Singapore is not about the roads, it's not about the buildings, it's not about the structures they have. Singapore is not physical infrastructure. It is a whole composition of the software. That is the policies. That is having systemic empowering systems and making sure that things are happening the way they are supposed to happen. Empowering, capacity building, and making sure that everything runs effectively and efficiently. That is what Singapore is about. Their parliaments, how do they operate? Their legislative arm, right? Look at their laws. Look at the way they handle corruption and everything else. So having these buildings and infrastructure is one thing. And this is what this book is going to confront. And brethren, I can assure you, the book traces Kenya's journey from pre-colonial societies through colonial conquest, the fight for independence, and the post-independence era, asking difficult but necessary questions, which I have just asked a few minutes ago. Rather than dwelling solely on criticism, the book offers practical roadmaps. It offers practical roadmaps for national renewal. Okay? It advocates ethical leadership, institutional reforms, economic transformation, civic responsibility, educational renewal, youth empowerment, and reawakening of patriotism grounded in accountability and service. And that's very, very fundamental. This is a journey I want to walk with you, and I want to assure you this book is now available in the market. The physical copies are there, as well as the e-books. They are there. I'll give you the link for you to get your own copy, because it's a historical journey, and at the same time, it's a journey of reawakening. It's a journey of getting to get us back to patriotism, for us to feel that we own it. We should be part and partisan in the new Kenya that we should be looking forward to. Blaming and pointing fingers at various administrations, that is not where it is going to get us here. I can assure you today, even if the president, if today we call an election, tomorrow for that matter, if we call an election tomorrow, and we throw out the regime which is in power, we throw out William Ruto from the office, I can assure you, as long as the structures are still the same, as long as the corruption networks are still there, as long as we have the structural deficiencies, nothing will change. Our debt position will still be there, because we have got odious, we have got very, very serious odious debts, which started from the time of Mwai Kibaki, more pronounced in the time of Uhuru Kenyatta. Until now, it is ongoing. By the time Uhuru Kenyatta was exiting office, the debt position of Kenya, we had 8.6 trillion in debts. And that is very, very scary, because all the budgets now, 60% of whatever we collect, more than 60% now goes to debt repayment. When will Kenya ever develop? What choices does the president have? What are the choices left for a president? Because nations, countries are a going concern. The debts which accumulated during Moi era, the debts which came on to Mwai Kibaki era, because Mwai Kibaki did collect quite a bit of debts, funding the infrastructure. And then Uhuru Kenyatta, with his SGR, the Eurobonds, and everything else in between, right? The debts kept on accumulating until now, when William Ruto was taking over in 2022, the debt situation was 8.6. It has grown much more now to almost 11 trillion, so to speak. So what is the problem? Where is the problem? We are not asking who is the problem, because it's not about leadership. It's not about the president. It is the situation he is in. It is the structures that are there. And that is what this book is all about. It's about the systems and the structures Kenya chose made decisions from the word go. Sessional paper number 10 of 1965. The first political assassination of Pio Gama Pinto, coming down to 1969, of Tom Mboya, coming down to 1975, of J.M. Karaoke, and so on and so forth. Goonism started during the time of Kenyatta, going all the way. We saw Njoya, Timothy Njoya, being beaten in the streets outside the parliament during the second liberation, and the James Orengos, when they were the young Turks, being mishandled by the goons. The goons did not start yesterday. They're not starting today. Yeah? I'm not defending Murkomen or William Ruto, but I'm saying this is a systemic issue. We shall not be dealing with the symptoms as long as we become complicit the moment we start being simplistic and dealing with the symptoms without necessarily addressing the root cause of the matter. Let's go to the book. What is the book all about? Once again, welcome. My name is Geoffrey Kimonge, and I'm going to take you through what this book structure is all about. Kenya Unfinished Business is a 60-year journey, as I've just mentioned. I've just given you the preamble, and I'm going to take you through chapter by chapter, maybe just a little bit, so that you can get your own copy and you can be able to understand better and probably interrogate some of the things that I have written in there. I took a lot of time to understand what is bedeviling our country. Changing leaders is not a solution to what we are going through. It is the structures which are the problem. Singapore chose a different line. Kenya opted to have a comfortable way. And that was at a time when we got independence. Kenya was struggling, and there were two forces which were fighting each other, the East and the West, the Eastern Bloc and the Western Bloc. What do I mean? I mean, that was during the time of the Cold War. So Kenya chose a rather easy path of continuity that is assuming the role of the system which was sitting then, the administrative system, which was built by the colonialists for control purposes, not for development, for control purposes and extractive economic policies. Yeah, Kenya adopted. It's just changed the color. The flag came in. The Kenyan flag came in. The African became the administrator. The Muzungu left the country, but the systems remained the same. And that is where we started going wrong, and the rain started beating us. Chapter 1 of the book is titled The Promise of Independence. This book opens by revisiting Kenya's transition from colonial rule in 1963, exploring the hopes of independence and asking why those aspirations remain largely unfulfilled. Now, that is in the chapter 1. Huh? Then we go to chapter 2, where a nation built on colonial foundation. Now, that's where I think we should start focusing. Rather than dismantling colonial institutions, Kenya largely inherited and preserved them. Now, that is unlike the Asian tigers. Remember, our GDP was slightly better than the GDP of Singapore then. But again, we opted on the choices we made that are listed in detail in the book, Kenya Unfinished Business, which you'll find there documented with a lot of evidence. This chapter examines how continuity rather than transformation shaped the modern state. Now, I think it is prudent if I attribute each of these activities to the president. Say for chapter 1, we can say the promise of independence, that is 1963 to 1964, that was under President Jomo Kenyatta. He was the prime minister from 1963 to 1964, and then president from 1964, okay? So I think that should be clear. That is, on 1st of June 1963, we got internal self-government, and then on 12th of December 1963, Kenya attained independence. On 12th of December 1964, Kenya became a republic. Now that's history, right? Okay, what are the general effects of that? Is that we had a high national optimism at that point in time. Okay, then we had strong expectations for land reforms. Now that's very critical. We had strong expectation for land reforms because one of the thorniest issue, one of the things that caused or made the Mau Mau go to the bush was because of the land issue. Okay, actually about 1.2 or 2 up to 2% of the population was occupying most of the prime land in Kenya, and that was the colonialists. So that was the reason. Land reforms was one of the major expectations that tukipata uhuru mashamba yetu tutarudishiwa. Yeah, that was the land reform issue. And then we have the unity and prosperity. Those are the things we were looking forward to, that we would be one people and we would prosper together, we would grow together. But again, that went terribly wrong. That went terribly wrong with sessional paper number 10 of 1965, where now priority was given to the areas which were development was being taken to areas where potential, areas with high potential, and so we started realizing, legitimizing marginalization of certain regions like the northeastern region, the coastal region, and all that. And then development started moving towards the coffee growing, tea growing areas, and the Rift Valley, where wheat and all these other products were coming from. So that was it. And then we have got the colonial infrastructure largely was retained. That was one of the effects. In the chapter 2, we have got the building the first republic. That was in 1964 to 1978. It was still under Jomo Kenyatta. And then we have consolidation of executive power. That's when things started getting thick. Initially, we started with the multi-party. There were other parties, KANU, KADU, KPU, and all that. They were all there in the Kenya when we were getting independence. KADU was under Ronald Ngala and KANU, all these people were there. So consolidation of executive power, the president started now getting himself, making himself very, very powerful. And then KADU merges into KANU, and then expansion of state-led development. Then we had the settlement scheme. What were the effects of that? Political instability. That was the first effect. Okay, when those things were happening in chapter 2, then we started having political instability. We started getting these dissenting voices. Then the growing regional and economical inequalities out of the sessional paper number 10 of 1965, that started happening. Okay, inequality started happening. Then increasing concentration of political and economic power. Okay, so in chapter 3, the land question, that is in 1963 to the present day. Now that is happening. Yeah, it never changed. Yeah, only the faces changed, the presidents changed, but that issue is still sticking out and is still the most painful thing in the hearts of Kenyans. President who covered all that is President Moi, or President Kenyatta was there. Moi continued it, Kibaki continued it, Uhuru Kenyatta, and William Ruto has still not solved it, has still not solved the land question. So that is something which is very, very thorny. Millions of acres schemes, okay? We have got millions of acres in schemes. Then we have got historical land allocation disputes. Okay, we changed from the white settlers. We got the black aristocrats, those who were in the government, who now repossessed. They started getting to buy, so to speak, willing seller, willing buyer, and they started buying large tracts of land. They started getting the financing, the loans, and all that to buy land from the exiting colonialists, and it was just centered to the aristocrats. Who now owned the large tracts of land. Coast and Rift Valley land conflicts, we started having those conflicts, and the community land reforms under the 2010 Constitution. Okay, what were the effects? Persistent inequality, which is still ongoing. Then we have got ethnic tension, which is still ongoing. The ethnic tension has never been resolved. So, and the recurrent election-related conflict. The election conflicts are all around land and all about these tensions are tribalistic. They are all about land. Chapter 4 deals with the fear as state policy from 1965 to 1991. The president, under President Jomo Kenyatta and Daniel Arap Moi, this is where now I want us to pay a little bit of attention because we have got major events that took place. We had the assassination of Pio Gama Pinto in 1965, then the assassination of Tom Mboya in 1969, and then we have the J.M. Kariuki in 1975, all covered in this book in chapter 4 of the book. And then we have got detentions without trial, which now started taking place, and a crackdown on political dissent. Remember, we are talking about the reign of Jomo Kenyatta and Daniel Moi, actually, who were in power then. And then in 1982, we had the attempted coup, and Kenya declared the de jure one-party state in 1982. Now, that's very critical because it really did a lot of damage to our nation because of the political shrinking. Okay? Now, the shrinking democratic space, that was the effect, the outcome of what happened in 1982 and the Kenya being declared the de jure one-party state in 1982. The culture of fear and self-censorship, and then the weakened institutional accountability that came with it. That is in chapter 4 of the book. It's all detailed in there. It's there, documented, factual, and with all the references down there. The period of 1978 to 2002, President Daniel Arap Moi. What happened? The major events were the expansion of provincial administration and then the centralization of executive authority, the centralization. Now he became the super president with all the powers. Yeah. And then we had a very, very weak oversight institutions during that time. This is what is happening, and this is what was happening during the Moi era. So when we see these things happening now, we are tempted to blame the current president for some of the things which actually spiraled from the other time, from 2 to 3 presidents ago, or 2 to 3 decades ago, that are affecting us here today. Now, what are the effects of that? We have the impunity became normalized, and then we have got citizens increasingly distrusted. The citizens increasingly distrusted public institutions. That's it. That's it. Nobody trusts the government anymore, right? It started then. Chapter 6 is dealing on corruption institutionalized. Corruption institutionalized. Who was the president then? Moi, Kibaki, and Uhuru Kenyatta, right? As I said, I'm not here. I'm being very apolitical at this point in time because I'm stating facts as they are, and the evidence therein is in the book. Okay, so corruption institutionalization happened during the Moi era. Remember, not Jomo Kenyatta, not the first. Institutionalization of corruption happened during the Moi era, the Kibaki era, and Uhuru Kenyatta era. What were the major events? We had the Goldenberg affair. We remember the Goldenberg. Then we have the Anglo leasing scandal, which was during the Moi Kibaki era. And then we have got the procurement scandal and the NYS scandals. Okay? All these scandals are happening in this one generation, the generation we live. So what were the effects? Massive public financial losses, massive. Okay? Reduced investor confidence and declining trust in government. That's the effect. That's what happened. In chapter 6, detailed, evidence-based, the story is there. Chapter 7, institutions under pressure. Okay? That is the period between 1964 to now. Okay? Major events, weakening of parliament and judiciary during one-party rule, judicial reforms after 2010, and the creation of constitutional commissions. That's what happened. What were the effects? We started noticing some improved constitutional safeguards, right? Persistent implementation challenges. We have the best constitution, the best actually, right? But let's talk about chapter 6 of the constitution. Who is implementing it? Why isn't it being implemented? They are cherry picking on chapter 6 of the constitution simply because if implemented, for sure we will go the Singapore route. Because we will have credible, we will have meritocracy, we will have very qualified people to do what they are supposed to do. But is it being implemented? Your guess is as good as mine. Chapter 8, Kenya lost industrial revolution. Under President Moi, President Kibaki, and Uhuru Kenyatta, collapse of textile industries, Rivertex, Kikomi, yeah, all the big industries, all of them, they disappeared. And then we have privatization, right? We major events were the privatization. And then we got decline of local manufacturing, okay? We have decline of local manufacturing and then growth of imports. We moved from going towards industrialization to collapsing the industries. We started giving the politically correct people import licenses as a reward for their being loyal to the party that was governing, the party of the day, thereby killing our own industries. We started importing sugar, we started importing maize, we started importing everything that we were manufacturing here, creating artificial shortages and giving the Mr. Right, yeah, the politically correct, or the person who is going to best fund the political machine during the campaigns was given import licenses to mess around. The end result is that the manufacturer, the companies, the businesses, yeah, which manufacture the same products could not compete in pricing, right? And eventually they were run out of the market. And this is where we say Kenya worked toward deindustrialization instead of industrialization. What is the end game? The end results is that we have a generation of Gen Zs who do not have jobs because there are no employers. And the employers are out of the market because politicians are continuously getting import licenses to import that which should have been manufactured here. And that's where the problem is. Again, I insist, the issues which this book is bringing out, they are systemic issues. We are looking at systemic issues, not personality. We are not saying one term or two term or whatever term. That is not what is in this book. This book is all about what is ailing this country, what is bedeviling this country, what has put us to where we are today. Kenya Unfinished Business has those answers in detail, and it is available in your market today at a cost of only 1,200 shillings. Make sure you get your copy. It is available. It is available online. I'll give you the link to downloading the book, and it is available in hard copy. I have them available for you wherever you are. And probably very soon we are going to get it in some of the major bookshops in the country. So we noticed that in chapter 8, we are talking about the lost industrial revolution, where now we are talking about the growth of imports, okay? What is the end result? Rising unemployment, okay? Deindustrialization and dependency on imported goods. Everything. Talk about toothpicks. You know where they're coming from? There was a time where there was even a danger that, we were getting imported tilapia from one of the Asian countries. Tilapia, fish. Let's go to chapter 9. I think you can feel my anger. You can feel my frustration. So when we become complicit and start being so petty and reasoning that we want to change one regime to another, this is a game of musical chairs. I mean, even if you get your ideal president today, I repeat, even if you get your ideal president today, I can assure you the debt situation in Kenya is not going to change anytime soon. That won't change. Governments are going concern. The corruption cartels, they are still there. They are still there, healthy and breathing. You cannot destroy them in a day. The systems that have put us here are still there. Let's go on. Chapter 9, debt without productivity. This happened under President Moi Kibaki, Uhuru Kenyatta, and now William Ruto. These are the major events are infrastructure expansion, standard gauge railway, rapid public borrowing. This is what is happening. And this is where we are as a country. This is where we are. What are the effects? Higher debt servicing. That's the effect we have. We have very high debt servicing, fiscal pressure, and reduced development spending. We have very little money for development. Up to 60%, actually more than 60% right now, when Ruto took over power, the debt situation was 8.6 trillion. Okay? Out of every 100 shillings, 60 shillings is going towards servicing the debt. What is remaining is a meager 40% for everything that we are running. Now, that is the problem where Ruto has found himself. That's the problem where he is. The spot he is. And there's no magic about it. The options are very narrow. Either he renegotiates those debts, he raises the tax, or what else? Actually, the money is between a block and a rock and a hard place. That's the truth of the matter. And that you should know. I don't care who you think is going to be the president after him, assuming that you throw him out. William Ruto is not the problem. The problem is how we got here. 60 years, 5 presidents down the line is what he's dealing with. So when we talk about addressing the symptoms without looking at the root cause of the problem, this is it. This is where we are. We are not being geniuses. Let us go a little bit deeper. Again, we have got to, okay, let me now stop digressing and go to chapter 10, election without transformation. That's what we have. In 1992 to 2022, we have the major events were the return of multi-party democracy in 1991 to 1992, the 2002 democratic transition, the 2007, 2008 post-election violence. We have got the 2010 constitution. We have got the 2013, 2017, and 2022 general elections. All of them are there. And what are the effects? We have got competitive elections, okay? Improved constitutional order, that we have to agree, and continued structural governance challenges. Those are still there. Chapter 11 is about lessons from Asia. What did Asia do differently? And that is still in the book. Yeah, in South Korea, look at Singapore, look at Taiwan. Yeah, the comparison. They discussed, they made very firm decisions on land reform issues, on education, on industrial policy, and meritocratic public service. Here it's about mtu wetu. It's about I come from the right tribe or something like that, you know? And that is where we are at the moment. Unless we change to meritocracy, where experts do their thing, regardless of which community they come from, Kenya is not going to go anywhere. And that has to change. And what is the result? rapid economic transformation abroad, and that is the Asian tigers. And the other effect is that lessons applicable to Kenya. Kenya can learn from that if we want to go to Singapore. That's it. That's what we have to do. Chapter 12 deals with leadership matters. Presidents covered, that is Jomo Kenyatta, Daniel Arap Moi, Mwai Kibaki, Uhuru Kenyatta, and now William Ruto. What are we talking about leadership matters? Different leadership philosophies, and then we have got institutional legacies and long-term national impacts. I'm rushing because I don't want to take much of the time. The book explains it all. And then in chapter 13, we have got the cost of unfinished business. The cost of unfinished business. That is the current challenges. It's youth unemployment, public debt, corruption, brain drain. Our best brains are now going out. We educate them. We take them to the university using the taxpayers' money. And then what happens? Guess what? They don't give us a return on investment. Instead, they go out to the, what we say, would call it, open opportunities to the diaspora. Really? Really? These are people who we invested so heavily from the primary up to secondary, free education. And then they go to the university. Now we now look for opportunities for them outside there. What does that tell you? Brain drain, okay? The cost of living is high and inequality. These are some of the things. And we don't blame to any single individual. This is a systemic thing which has come over a period of time. So what does that do? It slows economic growth and it brings public frustration and reduced social mobility. Reimagining Kenya in chapter 14, I have put what I think where Kenya should be. And the policy proposals are there for institutional reforms and productivity economy. We change our economic style from what we are, where we are right now, to be a productive economy, so that we can be able to generate our own revenues, we can generate jobs and all that. And also education transformation and public sector accountability and the industrial revival. This is one of the chapters which is bringing us now to the way forward, which way Kenya, if you wish. And chapter 15, that is the second last chapter. It's toward the Second Republic. The Second Republic, we are not looking at the Second Kenya constitutionally. We are looking at the Kenya of optimism, the Kenya of our imagination. Not exactly a utopia, but where we should be. We are looking at the Second Republic. Our vision should be towards strong institutions, the rule of law, respecting the rule of law, of course, and the productive governance and inclusive development. That is, nobody is left behind. Sessional paper number 10, which brought us to this situation, we should discard it, and we should now bring everybody on board, where we develop each part of the Kenyan country, each part of the nation together, and then we have national cohesion. This thing about the Kikuyu versus Kalenjin versus the other tribes, this and that is not going to help Kenya. Kenya will not move forward with that. And then finally, in chapter 16, we have got the future is still ours. And that's where I become extremely cautious but optimistic. The future is still ours. In this conclusion, I'm concluding the chapter arguing that Kenya's future is not predetermined. Independence was the beginning, not the destination. It was just the beginning. By learning from history, confronting unfinished reforms, and strengthening institutions, Kenya can still realize their aspirations envisioned in 1963. I'm closing with this reflection. I'm saying history explains where we have come from. Leadership determines where we are going. Institutions decide whether we get there or not. Thank you very much. My name is Geoffrey Kimonge Mbogo, and for you to get to address this particular book, my WhatsApp number. The WhatsApp number is 0722 780 685. And I'll give you a link on how to download the book so that you can study and understand it. So before you politicize the issues at hand, they are much deeper than we think. And before we blame, probably before we throw blame at President William Ruto, we should understand that this vehicle started going down the road, and it has only continued to accelerate downhill. He is now at the steering, trying to control a vehicle which has spiraled. It has taken 60 years going downhill, and the speed has now, the acceleration is so high. Now he has to make very critical decisions. He's not the one who took it down the hill. He's already found it down the hill. But will Ruto manage to steer the boat or the bus to a safe station? Does he need more time to do that? Or has he really already lost hope? That's what Kenyans should be discussing. What is your role as a Kenyan in the Kenya we envisage as documented in chapter 16? Thank you very much, and God bless you all.